please. The first item is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And a moment of silence. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
And second?
We'll second it.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. And with that, that takes us to our first public hearing, the Woodville Tower site location. Michelle, Ms. Summers, if you would be so kind.
Thank you. CWS submitted a personal wireless service facility application on July 31st, 2019. The entirety of the application submitted was and is provided on the agenda materials posted on board docs. The applicant, CWS, modified their application prior to determination by the Planning Commission, and a letter to that effect is on board docs. Before the board tonight, this application is located on Elvin Farms along 522, tax map number 491. CWS initially proposed a 199-foot lattice tower, but they have proffered to a 139-foot monopole tower with green slats and a compound screen, and to remove the waiver requested of the tower with removal bond. They are requesting waivers for microwave dishes to be used, landscaping requirements, the permit assignability, and the access road being a type 2 subdivision road. The Planning Commission held on September 18th of 2019 their public hearing, and again, that was continued to their November 20th meeting. The Commission decided to hold another public hearing since the applicant had proffered changes. The second public hearing was held on December the 18th. At that meeting, the Commission recommended denial of the application by a motion that read, based on the location, height, and design of the monopole, it does not minimize visibility so as to preserve the view shed and protect the natural, scenic, and historic resources of the site, and is therefore inconsistent with the comprehensive plan goals 1 and 4, the Rappahannock County Code 170-52J, and it will create an adverse impact on tourism and property values on the creation of an attractive and harmonious community, in contradiction to the Rappahannock County Code, Section 170, 108, 1-4, B4, and 170-52. This motion passed by a vote of 4-1. This public hearing has been properly noticed to be considered tonight, both with an ad in the newspaper and mailing to the property owners within 1 mile of the tower. I also believe at this time the applicant wishes to provide the board with a presentation.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Summers.
Thank you.
All right, since the applicant is present, if you have anything to add, I think now would be a good time.
Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm Rich Davies. I'm from Culpeper, Davies, Farrellville, Llewellyn, and Edwards, PLC. I've been representing Community Wireless Services for a number of years as we have worked trying to provide cell phone service in this part of Virginia. One of the things that has become a hallmark of Community Wireless is they listen when they go to planning commission meetings, and they reach out and talk to people in the community. Hope McCary is here, who will be making a presentation on behalf of Community Wireless, has actually been doing that. I have been to most of the meetings. I was unable to attend the planning commission meeting, which recommended denial tower. But I can tell you, they really did work on it. They lowered the height from the original request. They have tried to make it so that it would be less obtrusive to the landscape, which is obviously a sensitive issue. They have worked, and want you to know, they've spent time working with carriers, and they presently have expanded service that appears to occur in Boston at the tower, which is just in the public. They are looking at getting additional carriers on the tower at Spurville and actually have contracts on that. I can tell you that that is part of why they look so carefully at the 522 corridor. The 522 corridor lacks significant service. Both the volunteer fire departments, the volunteer rescue squad, have indicated that they are supportive of this, and the reason is because of emergency services. If you have an accident on 522 and you're out of the range, there's no way to call unless you have a hard line. And that is a challenge. That's something that certainly the health and safety of the people in Rappahannock County need to have that access to the service. One of the things that I also think is important is that the service in the 522 corridor becomes critical when you have a volume of tourist traffic. That becomes a real challenge, and you want to have that service to be able to deal with that. Not only will local people benefit from having cell phone service, but if you look at what is happening in today's society, many people are moving away from permanent hardline service to cell phone service, and that the largest thing is being driven by access and affordability. Tonight, Open Prairie is here on behalf of Community Wireless Services. She is prepared to make the presentation. There are representatives here from Sentinel who have the ability to respond to any questions that you have, and we appreciate the opportunity you are hearing us tonight. We thank you. I'll turn it over to Hope.
Very good, thank you, Mr. James.
Good evening, and Hope Prairie with Community Wireless. Do you have this communication on your screen?
Maybe you may want to pivot your chairs.
Well, it's up to you. There are a few things I'd like you to look at, I'm not sure. And I know many of you have been in some of the planning commission meetings, so you've probably seen a lot of this before. Just by way of refreshing you on our background, CWS has been developing telecommunications infrastructure in Virginia for over 20 years.
Closer to you, Mel, please.
Yeah. We built 56 structures, including 14 in neighboring Culpeper, Madison, and Fauquier counties, and of course we built one last year in Sperryville. We lease space on our facility. We have leases with all major wireless carriers, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, and Shentel. Gary, sorry. Gary and I have to get our communication together. And then we also lease space to a number of fixed wireless broadband provider and emergency services organizations. This map shows all the green dots are all the towers that CWS has built over the past couple of years. They're all in northern and central Virginia. That's where we focus. I'm here tonight to discuss our plan to develop a mobile wireless and broadband network along the Route 522 corridor in the southern part of Rappahannock County. The two new structures we're proposing to build, one near Scrabble and one we're talking about right now near Woodville, will allow service providers to implement seamless coverage between the existing telecom facilities in Sperryville and Boston. And as you know, wireless connectivity will benefit economic development, healthcare, education, and most importantly, public safety. On this map, the red dots are locations of the two new sites that we're proposing. The green dots are the existing Sperryville and Boston. As you mentioned, Shentel is here tonight. They're a Sprint affiliate in this market, and they have expressed intention to install and provide service from all four structures should they be built. This next map is a broader map. This shows all of the existing telecom structures in the county along the two major transportation corridors, 522 and 211. All the green dots are existing, and of course the red dots are the newly proposed. And Shentel and Sprint are installed on all of those green dots currently, with the exception of Sperryville. We haven't gotten on there yet. So you can see that with the implementation of the two new sites, Sprint will have pretty much border to border complete coverage and a complete network within the county, which is a pretty significant commitment. So we originally applied, as you know, to build a 199-foot structure on this 541-acre Eldon Farms parcel. The site is located just south of the intersection of Eric and 522. The tower would be in a 50 by 100 fenced compound, set back approximately 1,100 feet from 522. It's adjacent to some existing power lines, and it will not be lit. There's no FAA requirement for the tower to be lit at the top. The base of the tower is screened from the road and also from the neighbor's parcel by existing trees and vegetation, even though the site isn't heavily wooded. And the access will be from an existing entrance and driveway off of 522 to extend that gravel farm road to the site. The facility would accommodate up to 4 wireless service providers with Shentel as the lead carrier. Since the time of our application last July, based on extensive feedback we've had from the Planning Commission and citizens and staff, we made a number of changes to our application, or offered to make some changes to our application late last year. Most significantly, we offered to lower the height from 199 to 139 feet. That's a 60-foot or 30% reduction. And we believe that that height reduction significantly mitigates the visual impact of the structure while still maintaining sufficient coverage along Route 522, which we've talked about this at Planning Commission. The coverage of the transportation corridors, that's the carrier's main objective when they first get into the county. Once the main roads are covered sufficiently, then they look at ways to get deeper into the county. The next slide is a letter from Shentel from last fall. We wanted to make sure that they were part of this decision to lower the height and that it would work for them. They affirmed that in this letter, as well as affirming their interest in going on all 4 of the structures. The next slide, these are propagation maps, coverage maps prepared by Shentel, so it only reflects Shentel's configuration. The map on the left shows what they would predict the coverage to be if they were only installed on the existing Sperryville and Boston sites. And you can see a large white area there, which would essentially represent no coverage or spotty coverage. The map on the left assumes that they would be installed on all 4 sites, and you can see all the gaps are filled in, and there's good, strong coverage, all types of coverage, in building, vehicular, and outdoor along 522. This next propagation map shows what the coverage would be since we have 2 separate public hearings here, what the coverage would be if we built Woodville without Scrabble. And again, you can see that there would be still remaining with no Scrabble on air, a pretty significant gap, north and south of the proposed Scrabble site. So it would not fully solve the problem. So again, we believe that at a reduced height, most of the views of the Woodville Tower will be really no more impactful than that of all the utility poles that run along 522 and the power lines that cross the field. These are some of the sims that we had in our original application. We did an extrapolation to show kind of the impact of lowering the height. You can just kind of scroll through these, Gary. This was one of the most prominent views that we found traveling north on 522. You've got a pretty good shot at the tower at 199. Still see it, but much less so, only maybe the top third of the tower at 139. This next view is from the entrance to Clover Hill House. The tower is really far away in the distance, so even at 199, you don't see a whole lot, but at 139, it's pretty negligible. And there are, of course, lots of spots along 522 where you don't see a tower when you're driving north and south. It just really depends how much vegetation and tree line there is where you're driving. This is right at the entrance where we would enter the farm to get to the site. You couldn't see the balloon when it was swung. And the next one is, look like a quarter mile away again, very close to the tower, but you won't see it from that spot. Just as a refresher, here's some of the infrastructure I was referring to on 522 near Eldon. Power lines crossing the field, power lines crossing the road. This is a photo, this next slide, of where the tower site itself. The tower will actually be kind of up on that knoll, just a little bit off to the left of this photo, but you can see that there are power lines running right next to where we have the tower site planned. So in addition to lowering the height, we have offered to build a monopole structure instead of a lattice, which seems to be preference of a lot of folks. And we've also offered to paint it if that's requested and preferred. The next slide are two examples of CWS towers that we've built. One in Loudoun County, one in Culpeper. The one on the left is painted a solid brown screen, and the one on the right is what we call graduated paint, where it's green on the bottom and then transitions to what we call a sky blue. We're also suggesting that, this wasn't in our original application, but to help further screen the equipment on the ground inside the fence, that we use these green slats in the fence, which help to screen. This is, again, a CWS site where we use that type of fencing. And there are equipment cabinets in there, and you can't really see them because of the screen. It just helps it blend in better with the environment. I'm not going to get in, go ahead, Gary, sorry. So in planning commission meetings, there was a lot of discussion about, how we arrived at this particular location. We know it's not perfect. Why are we there? I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, and if you have questions and want to go through it, we can. These are, this is all the different things that have to be taken into consideration when you find a spot. Most importantly, one that works for the carriers from a propagation standpoint. Then you have to find a willing ground owner who will have their own issues and concerns, cost to construct, so on and so forth. We looked at 6 different locations on Eldon Farms throughout our process. We prepared 3 different sets of engineering drawings. We really did try to find the best option, and that's where we're at. We have requested 4 waivers from zoning ordinance requirements in our application. The Rappahannock ordinance prohibits the use of microwave dishes. We will need the carriers will need the ability to use microwave in the short run until fiber is available, which is their preferred way of getting telco service, which they need to run their equipment. The good news is that Rappahannock Electric is in the process of deploying fiber up and down 522, and I haven't spoken to them recently, but when I spoke to them late last year, they were projecting that for 2020. The carriers strongly prefer fiber. They don't like to use microwave backhaul, so as soon as it's available, they'll be transitioning away from the microwave dish. Landscaping requirements, there are landscaping requirements in the ordinance, but there is a provision that allows for them to be waived when there is natural screening. And again, even though this isn't a wooded site, we think there's plenty of nearby vegetation and tree line that we were not able to really see the base of the tower or where the equipment compound would be at all from the road and from the property. So we like that, planted landscaping requirement waived. And then we need to be able to assign our use permit if down the road we were to sell the asset, and we want to use the existing barn road and extend that rather than build a new road, which is a less obtrusive solution. This is the tower at Benvenue that you're all familiar with, and the only reason I put it up there, it's hard to see, but if you look on the upper right-hand corner next to that tall antenna, you see a little dot, and that's a microwave dish that's been on that site for a long time and it doesn't seem to be bothering anybody. We're not talking about these large, giant drum dishes that you see sometimes on big public service towers. These are typically maybe 3 feet in diameter, and when they're up high in the air, they're not very visually intrusive. So just FYI. Just kind of recapping, why are we asking for support for this telecom structure in Woodville? As I mentioned, this site, along with the other 3, will bring wireless service to those who live, work, travel through the county, along with the county's primary transportation routes. I believe that affordable, reliable access to wireless these days is a necessity, not a luxury. Probably most importantly, there will be improved public safety. Reliable wireless will ensure that people can communicate with first responders in the event of emergency, and it will also help the first responders communicate with each other when the radio systems are inadequate, as they are in certain areas of the county. We've been told by numerous folks that live out here that the landlines are unreliable, and I think that's just going to continue because there's so fewer people using landlines these days. I think 70% of people are all wireless now. This is a letter, putting an exclamation point on the public safety aspect. This is a letter from Carol Hugo, representing the fire and rescue community, supporting our applications from a public safety perspective. And the next letter is from the school board, also supporting wireless and supporting new infrastructure, primarily, I think, for school bus safety. And, important to the county, I think everyone, there's been a lot of discussion about how to get rural broadband out into the communities and into the county, and some of your neighboring counties have had to do that with taxpayer dollars, with public funds. We're offering private investment here. The next item I think is really important too. We have 3 carriers right now who are actively interested in expanding service in Rappahannock. We have Shentel, we have T-Mobile, who has leases in place with us at Boston and Sperryville. We have Verizon, who just submitted a formal application with us and told us they want to be on the air this spring. That means that the carriers have us in their build plans, they've allocated capital for this market. If structures don't get built relatively soon, that capital is going to go elsewhere. So the question is not now, when. We did evaluate multiple sites. One of the benefits of Elvin Farms is they control 7,000 acres, so there aren't a lot of neighbors who are impacted. There are a few. And we believe that the visual impact has been significantly mitigated through the proffers. So I respectfully request your approval of our application for this much needed infrastructure, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do any of the board members have questions for Mr. Curry at this time?
I might be getting ahead of your second presentation on the Scrabble site, but you and I met recently one-on-one, and I just, for the public record, and just so everyone is aware, you mentioned that Shentel had done its own propagation study, and I think we saw part of the results of that with Woodville, but no Scrabble. If you have Scrabble, but no Woodville, what is Shentel's analysis of the gap in coverage? Could you describe that along 522 and characterize, would it be no coverage, would it be diminished coverage, and what distance of 522?
I'm going to let Jamie do that, but it might be better. I do have.
Maybe it's a Scrabble question.
Maybe, I mean, if that's okay.
That's okay with me. I just want to make sure that we cover that.
And Jamie will let, Jamie's the Shentel's radio frequency engineer, so he's the expert. He's the one that put together the problem.
It's no problem. If we cover it one way or the other tonight, I'm fine.
Okay, yeah, we are prepared to
Skip
talk.
ahead if you want.
Oh, okay, well, there it is. I think just from a layperson's perspective, there is still a gap. It is I think Scrabble clearly does a better job, especially at 199, of covering a significant portion of the road. There's going to be a small area just south of 231. There will be either short gaps of no coverage or spotty intermittent rather coverage, vehicular coverage on the road. Getting out beyond the road, anybody that lives out that way or wants service, that becomes a lot more problematic. And again, I'm going to ask Jamie to get into the details on that with you a little bit during the Scrabble.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Very good. Thank you, Ms. McCrary. I think then that brings us to the public hearing. If anyone wishes to be heard, please line up at the podium and identify yourself and the district where you are from. And if you could keep your comments to about 5 minutes or less. I now declare the public hearing open. Thank you. Mr. Irwin.
Phil Irwin, Flint Hill. I rise in opposition to this proposal that you're considering this evening. There are undoubtedly many ways that the natural scenic beauty of this county can be desecrated, and I suggest what you're considering this evening is very high on the list, if not number one. The Planning Commission has considered both of these applications that we're considering, and advised you to reject the one in Woodville. And for some reason, they did approve the one in Scrabble. But either of those proposals answers the need in this county for comprehensive broadband coverage. It's only for a small amount of land. I don't know what the percentage would be, but it's a small percentage of the county that would be improved by way of broadband coverage. And until we have some type of a proposal for giving good broadband coverage in Rappahannock County for the entire county, you're considering a piecemeal, one-time proposal which has no it's open-ended. There's no conclusion to it. Your planning commission has produced many years ago a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan contents are the only justification that you need to turn this proposal down. Please, the desecration of this county is at stake. There are ways in the future that will not necessitate this ugly intrusion of a series of towers. Rappahannock County is incomparably different. Let's keep it that way. We want to be unique and maintain our natural scenic beauty, which we have declared the county to be. Please do not approve this stuff.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Ryan?
Bob Ryan from Stonewall. I have written after about the time of the planning board, written a letter with some simulations of what the Woodville site will be, and so I'd be happy to include that. I've got my remarks in the very end. I sent it to Michelle, so I think it's on the record. I hope it's on the record. First of all, I think we all appreciate the response to the comments and to people that live near the proposed sites from CSW. And in my letter, I said that I support both of the sites. I live on Besseville, and certainly coming down my road, I will see the Scrabble site. But the mix of the needs of the community in terms of parents, children, the emergency response is clearly what we have to consider as being at the top of the list. On the other hand, certainly as some of the simulations that I put, the visual impact, while reduced, is still there. So I think the new engineering report which I just saw today, that I think the board commission was really an excellent report, and I want to salute our administrator for, as being an engineer, for bringing that to the county's attention. So I think it does, that report, that engineering report, does show that with Scrabble, Sperryville, Boston, that there would be indeed a wide and continuous coverage for vehicular traffic and many outdoor. So I think it's not obvious from that report that the Woodville Tower is needed. And while I support it, I'm just going to read the end of my simulations, and that is to have the Woodville approved but be built last after the existing planned towers at, well, not the existing tower at Boston, the existing tower at Sperryville, and the planned tower at Scrabble are lit up. As far as we know, I've dealt in theories a lot of my life, and until we know what the actual experiments are, it may not prove to match the theory. So I offer that as a suggestion that we wait, or at least approve on the condition that the Sperryville, Scrabble, and Boston are completed, so the actual signal strength can be measured at Woodville to determine the actual measurements, rather than theoretical calculations to show that the Woodville site is needed and not a co-location so close to Scrabble. It's possible even to have the applicant save money. So I think that is an opportunity, and based on the new engineering report, I think might be approval with a condition. And certainly, again, meeting the needs of the emergency community and the needs of tourists that are coming here to help our economy, and the parents and children is certainly job one. So I'll submit this again.
Well
Thank you,
said.
Mr.
Thank
Ryan.
you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Mr. Canby?
Hi, I'm Edward Canby, representing my family in the Piedmont District. I'm going to read once again from the Rappahannock County's own comprehensive plan. This is Principle 3, Policy 12. It says, restrict the potential impact of utility-scale wind, solar, service towers, and other utility-scale facilities on prime agricultural land, sensitive for city landscapes, ridges, crests, and view sheds from scenic highways, historic sites, and other sensitive settings important to maintaining rural county atmosphere. Is this the template that the Ellen Farms Corporation and community wireless structures use to select their site? It meets all the requirements. Got prime agricultural land, sensitive for scenic landscapes, view shed from scenic highway, and view from historic site. My family owns Millis Cabin. Built in 1740, it is one of the oldest, if not the oldest structure in Rappahannock County. It is the closest property to the proposed tower. The Rappahannock County Historical Society considered the structure historic enough to have featured it in their 2019 calendar. Hope Query of CWS has repeatedly contended that there are no historic properties near the proposed tower site, and repeated that claim as recently as the December Planning Commission meeting. She knew that wasn't true in March, when my family communicated with her before the first balloon test. Despite our objections, they and the Ellen Farms Corporation chose to move the proposed tower site even closer to our property. She certainly knew in July when she and I met. Despite my numerous objections, she dismissed all of my concerns and said they were going through the application process anyway. We had made sure that our property had a conservation easement so as to avoid anything of this nature at any time in the future. Little did we know that our neighbors, who are now leaving the neighborhood, were we're going to put up a giant cell tower on the other side of the property line. As everybody knows, Eldon Farms is up for sale. The owners have chosen to leave Rappahannock County. They chose their current proposed site to maximize the sale value of their land, but in turn are reducing the value of our land. Needless to say, they chose to not put the tower anywhere near their home, but right next to ours. The Eldon Farms Corporation owns 12 square miles of land. The cell tower proposed site would be an eyesore to us and to the entire community because it's in the wrong place. I don't think anyone here would want to open the front door of their house and see something that looks like this at I-11. It would certainly look nothing like the little red balloon. With all the associated hardware, it would be about the size of 2 campers sitting side by side atop a very tall pole. Cellular signals are most powerful at similar elevations and close proximities to the transmitters as our home would be. Cellular technology is still in relative infancy. Over time, the signals will get more powerful and more toxic. I do not want my family, which includes 2 cancer survivors, to be exposed to these increasingly toxic signals. I urge the Board of Supervisors to follow the recommendations of the Planning Commission, who in their almost infinite wisdom voted to deny the tower in its proposed location, with 80% of the commissioners voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Campy. Anyone else wishing to speak? Let's hear from the young lady and then Martin.
My name is Claire Bresnan from the Piedmont District, and my family owns Millie's Cabin, which is the closest property to the tower. It was said that this property or the tower was screened from neighboring property by extensive tree cover, and I can tell you that that is not accurate. I look at that patch of land every single day as I walk out the door, and there are some trees, but they're not 135 feet tall. And I look at that area regularly because it's the only place in my life that I've seen a red-headed woodpecker, so I'm quite familiar with it. The photos shown in this presentation earlier were shown in full summer foliage. That's not what that area looks like right now. The views from the road would be much more extensive, and the shots were pretty carefully selected. It seems to block that area by foliage. This site does not have a dense foliated hill backdrop to hide it from views from the road or from our property. This county also restricts microwaves for a reason. The carriers admitted that they don't like microwaves themselves, so why put the health of people that live in this county at risk just for this limited coverage? The map without the Woodville Tower with the Scrabble Tower showed that there was potentially in-vehicle and outdoor coverage along the whole road. So why build a Woodville Tower without seeing what the full coverage looks like for the other towers? There are very few homes along this stretch that would benefit from indoor coverage, and I personally, as one of those few homes, am quite satisfied with my Wi-Fi and mainland coverage. And I just don't think that it's worth putting the integrity of the land, decreased property values, and degradation of the scenery that makes this county so unique at risk for such a small benefit to residents and people traveling here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Robert?
I'm Martin Woodard from Piedmont District. There's a couple of quotes from the comprehensive plan I'd like to just to mention. One is, "We the people of Rappahannock declare it to be a scenic county, and all goals, principles, and policies will reflect and evolve from this fundamental recognition. A scenic county shall mean one in which preservation and enhancement of the natural and historic beauty, the cultural value of the countryside shall be respected as being of foremost importance. The very first goal of this comprehensive plan that we're just hoping to touch across the finish line is to preserve the overall viewshed of the county in its unspoiled natural setting, which gives it special character and identity. I believe the Woodville Tower is the wrong structure in the wrong place. It is an eyesore right in the middle of one of the loveliest landscapes anywhere in the eastern United States. I am also in complete agreement that we need better connectivity for everyone, for fire and rescue, for school children, for people working and living in Rappahannock County. And I know better cell service will certainly help me in my business. So the question is not our treasured beauty versus cell phones. That is not it's not a black and white question. The question is, how do we do it right? And I believe we can preserve our beautiful landscape and still have great connectivity. To that end, I'm very pleased that the board engaged Federal Engineering to do a coverage analysis of the existing proposed cell towers along the 522 corridor. I'm not an engineer, and the analysis is pretty deep stuff. But, and there are many variables, but I think it clearly demonstrates that we don't need 195-foot tall cell towers lining Route 522. It is obvious that there are other alternatives. As I understand the study, we can have good cell service for the entire 522 corridor without any tower whatsoever at Woodville. Now, there would be some in-house service diminished, but you have to keep in mind that stretch from where that tower is to Fletcher's Mill, there's only like 6 houses in that whole stretch. So the in-house connectivity really doesn't have much bearing. I urge the board to deny the Woodville Tower. Let's see how the coverage actually works out with Sperryville, Scrabble, and Boston. At a later date, if coverage needs to be improved, we can improve a cell structure with a location and an architecture that is appropriate for this beautiful landscape.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Mr. Connick?
Good evening, members of the board. This happens so rarely that I want to come right up here and get right on it, and that's that I agree with every single thing that Martin Woodard just said. So I'm not going to belabor any of what he said. Unfortunately, my supervisor's not here, so I don't know who gets to vote for us in Stonewall District. But what I want to urge the board to do is very carefully go through what's in the ordinance and the findings that we have to make sure that we vote for each and every one of them so that whatever decision we make will be defensible and not subject to challenge because the board didn't make all the findings and go through. You have to go through each and every one of them so that you can make a record that I think that the ordinance requires to make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Oh, Cynthia, yes, please, Ms. Price. Did you have your hand up? Yes.
Okay, I will address the Scrabble Tower.
This is the public hearing for the Woodville Tower.
You want me to wait?
Yes, ma'am, this is the public hearing for the Woodville Tower.
Okay, for the Woodville Tower, I object to that going up. I don't think we need it. I think it's an eyesore. I think we have a mission statement for fiber to every home, premise, and business, and school in the county. That's going to cover connectivity. The last thing we need is to despoil 522, and all of 522 is scenic with the tower. Any size, any shape, any color. So I'm opposed to the tower. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, ma'am?
I'm Mary Kugel from Piedmont District, and I consider myself fortunate because I do have cell phone service, excellent cell phone service. Fortunately, I don't see any towers. The tower I pick off of is a good 5 miles away as the crow flies. So why this particular tower is going to be less than a mile from the house, and I don't get any service from that tower. So I think we have to look very carefully at where this tower is going to be and who's it actually going to benefit. I don't see a reason to put it where it is. It's going to be an eyesore, and if I can ping off of something that's 5 miles away and the technology's older, you should be able to find a location for this tower that is less intrusive, less obnoxious, and still get adequate coverage for all the fire and rescue and all those sorts of things that were mentioned. So I seriously recommend we look at the location, and as it is, I would request denial of it.
Thank you. Can I see a hand up in the back? Yes.
J.B. Carter from Jackson District, also first responder here in the county. A couple of things. I'm sure cell phone companies aren't looking to build towers they don't need. They're actually not going to spend money on something that's not going to help their system. So why they would go through an exercise of unnecessary towers is beyond me, but I don't see the logic in them actually going for something that is not needed. So if they're asking for it and they're going to spend money on it, they must need it to make their system work. Fire EMS and the Sheriff's Office all need more cell coverage in Rappahannock County. The corridor we're talking about on 522 is a dead zone for us, especially when we're trying to call the hospitals. And again, not having cell service in Rappahannock County is stopping us from jumping into the 20th century and getting computer-aided dispatch so that we can have up-to-date information from dispatch sent to our vehicles by a computer. And all this works on the cell phone signal. Where I used to work at, we've had CAD since the late 1980s, and it's actually helped save some of our, especially police officers' lives. We're getting more up-to-date information, being able to do checks on vehicles immediately instead of having to wait for dispatch to come back with information on cars. Again, we need cell phone communications for transmitting EKGs. When you're having a heart attack and I need to transmit an EKG to a hospital, it's all done through cell phone signals. It's not done through our radio network because it won't reach the hospitals. So these are important, timely decisions that need to be made, and all this information again is relayed by cell phone. If I'm in Sperryville, Woodville, or any of those areas, right now I have no service, and I have to wait till I get into Culpeper County to actually find out if I need to send a patient elsewhere where cath lab would be. If you're having a heart attack, I need to get you a cath lab either in Winchester, Fairfax, or somewhere down in Fredericksburg area. And that's usually done by helicopter. If I can't send that signal to the hospital for them to confirm that the patient's having a heart attack, then I may not be taking them to the right facility. Our deputies are in danger. Every day they go out, they are in danger, and cell phone signal, especially with CAD, can help them to interconnect with the licensing system to see what the license plates are and who's in the cars. Again, helping them out. And again, this thing is not in my backyard. Nobody wants a cell phone tower in their backyard, but it helps the community. It helps the people at large. What if the people that lived in the surrounding Rappahannock County decided, not in my backyard, I don't want electric towers that feed Rappahannock County electricity. So again, is the view shed worth somebody's life? We've already had somebody die during an accident, because cell phone signal was not available to them. Had to drive 6 miles in order to get cell phone signal so they could call for help. So that's already happened in Rappahannock County. Again, please approve our application, this application that they're asking for. We need cell phone signal, we need cell phone service in this county to help save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Carter. Yes, sir.
Good evening. I am Art Schroeder. I'm president and CEO of the Lane Group under Open Burn. John is no would have been here, but he's out of town, so he hasn't come instead. We have been looking at cellular and broadband and communication at Open for over 15 years. We have looked at various means over that time of bringing broadband and cellular communication in as a way of helping to preserve the property. We are fully supportive of the county's goals in terms of preservation. We are fully supportive of the comprehensive plan. Get that from Nelson Lane regularly, going back to his time on this board back 20-some years ago. But to do that, we also have to keep up with what is happening in the world. What's happening in the world is that wireless communication really is a necessity that is needed if we, and as a large landowner and anyone else, are going to try to be able to continue to preserve land, preserve opportunities, to preserve all the remaining spaces. So we are here wanting to work with the county. We work with them on community wireless, because honestly, they're the only ones who've ever come to us and asked us to do so, but we go back and have been not before the county board, but with appointed officials here in the county for years, and at one point we looked at bringing fiber in ourselves from outside the county. So we are here to find a solution. We think the solution is essential for the benefit of the county, and we are here to partner with that. I know there was one mention that we're needing the county. I think while the property is offered for sale, there's absolutely no sense at the moment that the Lane family is leaving the county. If someone gets to come along and offer to purchase, it's a possibility. That probably is true of every landowner here if someone came and made a right offer. But I suspect that we'll be here for a while. So again, we want to work, find a solution. We are supportive of this application primarily because I have been working with the Lane family. This is the start of my 41st year. And I've been coming to Rappahannock for 40 years. These are the first people who come to us and wanted to work with us to try to solve the problem. And I don't think that next person's going to be this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yes, sir.
Cody Dodson with the Piedmont District, also run fire in Smith County, and I also work with the Sheriff's Office. I want to repeat everything that J.B. Carter said. All of that is 100% correct, and kind of speak from my experiences over the past 10 years of working for the Sheriff's Office. One of the most recent experiences, just a week and a half ago, I was on a traffic stop in Woodville. I was out of the car dealing with somebody, and the next thing I know, I hear sirens coming. Looking around, I'm like, why are sirens coming? Well, dispatch had been trying to get a hold of me for 10 to 15 minutes, and they weren't able to. So now we put a deputy's life in danger just because they couldn't get a hold of me, responding 100, 120 miles an hour because they think something was wrong. Where I have a department-issued cell phone, it was right in my pocket. Had I had cell phone service, they could have called me. I seen that it was dispatched, they told them I was okay. I've seen a lot of motor vehicle accidents over the years where it's taken time for somebody to call 911, where sometimes the situation could have been different in the outcome. I think having good cell phone service is very important, especially for that area of the county that would, for the most part, it would give us cell phone coverage on the main corridors in the county. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Let's go Paul, Larry, and then Yes, sir.
No, it's first name.
Paul Dunbar, Stonewall Hawthorne District. Everything that Mr. Carter and Mr. Dodson said regarding the public safety side of this is very, very true. And between the Sperryville Fire, Sperryville Rescue, and Castleton, we run that 522 corridor from Scrabble south. And there's a lot of accidents in the southern side of that that have occurred with tractor trailers rolling over filled with slurry mix for paving roads and creating a mess that just you usually can't deal with. We've also dealt with having an accident and not having great radio coverage and zero cell coverage. So we actually would send somebody on further south to pop up into the Culpeper County right at the line and make a cell phone call because the radios didn't work. Hopefully the new radio system will take care of that. The safety of the officers has always concerned me because we don't have a lot of deputies on duty at night. And they could be in totally opposite ends of the county. And for somebody to respond, as Cody had mentioned about, they weren't able to check on him is a serious issue. It's a serious safety issue for the rest of the public that's on the road as that other deputy's trying to get to help his fellow deputies. So from that perspective, it is worthwhile and is needed for the public safety community. I wanted something that has kind of chewed at me over the whole cell tower issues, even from the original ones that were established here in the county back in the Sprint days. As those towers went up and the controversy, the county was basically split 50-50 on whether they wanted it or didn't want it. As you know, Amosville's tower is brown. We have a tower in Sperryville which is not brown. And as you look across every open farm area, you see the power poles, which are brown and are very visible. In the multiple years of my experience in dealing with Navy ships, which they like to paint gray, unless it's a submarine and it's black, but we have found that aluminum structures, galvanized structures are better left alone. And leaving them alone means, number one, you have a long-term maintenance issue with paint. You're going to redo it at some point in time. If you leave the galvanized structure or aluminum structure alone, the corrosive action that takes place on those metals dulls the metal, makes it less reflective. If it's not smooth, it's not going to reflect. So it has a tendency to blend in better. It may be out there and exposed, but it's not brown when you're looking at a blue sky. So my recommendation after all these years has been, I've been in more than 35 states in this country, and since the original cell towers here and then traveling throughout the country on business trips and in my RV, I've noticed that a lot more places have the galvanized structures or aluminum monopole structures than they do anything that's painted. It's nice to have a pine tree, but those Route 3 does well with that. Just as a business perspective, and I think Mr. Carter expressed this very well, there's no business out there that would spend the hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a tower that they didn't need, that they couldn't justify to their board of directors. And I think if they're willing to come forward and propose that structure, I certainly do like the idea of let's do Scrabble first, and then take the measurement then to see what your coverage is. That's a very good idea, and I'm glad someone mentioned that. It's a very good idea. I know that the study that was just completed does show that there's coverage in between
the Scrabble and Sperryville Tower, and could we afford to wait 6 months to a year to determine that? And I venture to say that we probably can, and I don't know how long it takes to get a tower up and running, but I'm sure it's a few months involved. At least the preparation will be in place. So from an approval standpoint, you can put a stipulation on the approval at the Woodville site, only if the coverage isn't adequate enough, and then the approval will go through. But from a fire and rescue standpoint, we absolutely do. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr.
Yes, sir. Oh, sorry, Mr. Grove.
You said second.
Yes, sir, I did. Thank you.
There you go. On behalf of the Sperryville Fire Department, which this area is our first duty, I can tell you there are many spots along 522 where you have absolutely no communication skills there. And we encourage you to improve this.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
James Bus, Piedmont District. I just want to say I think it's absolutely imperative that we support fire and rescue and with cell coverage. We have a cell phone we use all the time in Woodville, and that we get broadband. Highly recommend it. T-Mobile. The only request we'd like to see is, we have 7,000 acres on Elder Farms. Can't you just push it a little further up the mountain, away from somebody's backyard? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Deacons.
Good evening, the Deacons, Hampton District. I've made my opposition to both towers known, both verbally and in print. I want to continue the opposition. With all due respect to fire and rescue, Skyline, Sentinel National Park does not have cell towers, yet they effectively handle all emergencies there via a police radio. And if you take a look at that map that CWS has provided, I think you kind of overlay that into the toxic zone. That covers what basically translates into toxicity for all those people that are underneath its rays. And as a builder, it kind of reminds me of the old, their approach to lighting the sky, like the Sherwin-Williams logo, which is will cover the earth. Against the intent. And I'm in strong opposition and urge you to deny the application.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Patty Peterson. I'm from the Piedmont District. And I've really listened very carefully to all the very constructive comments that have been made. I'm the daughter of a Pennsylvania State Trooper and eventually Chief of Police in the town in which I grew up. So the issue of safety and emergency, those things ring very clear to me. But I think we have to be careful about juxtapositions, and I think that's what Martin Woodard was trying to say. It's not black and white. What I hear is we'll have a corridor of communication along 522. We don't know exactly whether we need the Woodville Tower or not, but we will have a corridor. But if emergencies and safety issues are to be part of our deliberations here, what about the people who are not on the corridor? We have lots of hills and hollers out here. They're part of the beauty of this place. And I'm sure there are many, many dead spots. So whose life and where? It's the same thing when we think about the beauty of our surroundings. These are, as I've said in previous meetings before this group, not just matters of not in my backyard. It's not just what's outside my window. It's a whole economy that has been built around the beauty of this place. So it's not just those who live here, but all the people who come here and stay in our B&Bs and eat in our eateries and buy in our shops that keep all these small businesses going. So I implore everyone, when we start these juxtapositions, to know, yes, we need to take safety into consideration, but we also need to take into beauty into consideration and its long-term importance for the economy of this region. And the Woodville Tower is one that is very much one that you would need to think about in this regard, as we have thought about Sperryville and its impact. And by the way, aluminum towers do not get less unsightly over time. I've watched that as well.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Yes, Sally, thank you.
Sally Haynes, Piedmont District. I want to just remind everyone that when we're looking at photos, they're very deceiving because we're taking something this big and we're turning it into something this big. So when you can't see a tower, it's because you've reduced the reality to the point where you can't see it. I came across some interesting information today. I'm not up to date really on communications, but apparently last week Elon Musk, SpaceX, put up 60 more close to the Earth satellites in connection with his plan to have internet for the globe. So he now has 180 of these, and according to the news article, later this year, he plans to have internet service in Canada and North America. So I've heard people talk about this is not the right technology is coming. I guess this is what they've been talking about, and it seems like there's a possibility it's going to get here sooner than I would have imagined. So I do hope that we're looking at that. And the other thing I would echo is that within 7,000 acres, I would be hopeful if we have to have a tower, that it would not have to be so close to the one property owner with Melly's Cabin.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, sir. And then to the back.
I'm Ted Goshorn from the Piedmont District. I had an occasion to go to New England this last summer to visit my daughter. And one of the things I noticed was I had cell coverage everywhere we went. Everywhere I went, I had cell coverage, good cell coverage, up in New Hampshire. I asked my son-in-law where the towers were. And he said, "You haven't seen one?" I said, "No." And we drove out a little ways from his house. And he said, "Look at the top of the mountain. Can you see it?" I said, "No, I don't." He said, "Look through the binoculars." I did, and I saw it. It looked like a tree, but it was high on a hill. Someone had gridded out, a communication company had gridded out the whole area up there. And that's how they put them up. The other thing I'd like to see is with the long reach of some of the new frequencies, I'd like to see what the existing towers do before we commission a lot more and see where we really need to put them. I think there should be a timeline on when they execute and get the services going. And there's got to be some accountability somewhere along this process. It doesn't seem like it's working right now because nothing seems to be happening. I hear stories, but nothing is happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ted. It'll work.
Hey, I am not a resident, but I have business with the county, Fallen LLC. Okay, cool. Hey, my name is Ryan Pfister. I'm a resident of Washington, D.C., and I'm getting married here in October this fall.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Came to town and have great respect for your plan for seeing county. That is something that applies to town. With respect to those who have pointed out the seeing county idea, I can say that we definitely support getting some more cell phone towers in place. We're going to get married in Sperryville, but we have guests coming from the surrounding area and hotels, and we're a little bit concerned about a convenience factor, being able to get in touch with them, and also B, an ability to get in touch with them in an emergency. And I think really would like to speak in support of what the first responder also said, that seems like a compelling safety argument to us as well as bring a business. We'll be patronizing local hotels and restaurants, and generally bring business to the area and say, representative of others from town, they would appreciate that. Last point I'd make is that it does seem like a great county. This is a place where maybe we would like to live one day, but at this point, it's not really realistic for us to live in an area and have a remote job without cell phone service available to receive calls. Just wanted to bring business to the county perspective from the city here. Obviously, respectful of residents who like personal, just so you have information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, Tom.
Prepared remarks. Congratulations, Chairman.
Thank you.
Steve Beering and the members of the board. We're happy to see you, Mr. Craig Rose. Happy to have you here. You know, you're going to watch out for our money now the paint goes up on the towers, correct? Always. Thank you, sir.
Please address your
My name
comments
is
to the
Tom
floor.
Pelican.
Thank you.
I live in the Hampton District. I live where probably, hopefully, everyone in this room has been at one time or another. It's up on Red Oak Mountain. Red Oak Mountain is special to this county. It's probably the highest elevation in the county when you get all the way up to the top of it. I live halfway up. I bought my house and I bought the property, not the house, in 2003. I bought the view. I did not buy the house. I now have had the house and the view. And in 2013, it required me to sell the house. I sold it to a former resident of the county. His grandfather was our doctor here. And she loved the house, but she wasn't ready to move into it. So since 2013 and today, I'm still in it. And I'm happy about that. I also, in the last 4 or 5 months, I've learned a new word. I probably should have known it before. I always said, well, that's a beautiful view. But now I use the word view shed. It really expresses itself. And I was hoping that maybe Mr. Wood would be able to speak here tonight on behalf of it. He owns most of it. He's my good neighbor. His father was one of the most caretakers of the county on the land that he owned. He would be very uncomfortable here tonight, I must say. As I speak, I do not oppose cell towers in my county. I don't oppose the location of the many that have been approved. But the Woodville location is not acceptable. It's in my view shed. It was in Lane's view shed. When they first came there, they denied, but it's on record, the chairman knows that. They came before the Panel Planning Commission, And they told us why the location where it is now. Because when they told the Lanes where they wanted to put it, the Lane says, no, it's in our view shed. So where did they put it? They put it in somebody else's view shed, not necessarily mine. Other people have spoken here tonight. They're upset into that. Rappahannock County has done a lot to protect itself over many years. Former members of this board understood that, and they've spoken out when it's time to speak out. I know the board will do the same thing again. I want to say that the protection of our environment is very important. And the protection of our view sheds are very important in this county. It brings people here. I also respect the advice given to you tonight by members of the rescue squads and the fire departments. There is a great need. There's another place for this tower to go. There's 7,000 acres where it could go someplace. And it could be accessible if the people who put it up want to pay for the location. There's other locations on Route 522. Let's also remember that within a month or two, we're going to have a new law on the books. And it's going to say, you can't drive your car and talk and hold your phone in your hand and talk. You have to have hands-free phones. That's going to affect 522 a lot. There's going to be a lot of accidents that have happened, and they've already happened because of cell phones being used as people drive down the roads. It's more important to those who aren't using their hand phones and driving down the road, which we discovered also. I'll close by saying this. Recently in the Rappahannock newspaper, just 2 weeks ago, I read something that really thought was very appropriate, and it's very brief, and I'll read it to you. It was in 1996, 25 years ago. The paper picks up good things to tell us once in a while about our community. The first thing is about Woodville and Scrabble, which is very historical. The other thing is about the Bridges family. Ben and Helen Bridges have put 277 acres of their land between Washington and Sperryville into easement, including their end of Jenkins Mountain, their pastures and ponds, their frontage on both sides of the Covington River. This is a quote. Wouldn't it be horrible to see this subdivided, to see 20 or 30 houses, Mr. Bridges said, gesturing towards the spectacular view from Eagle's Nest in their mountaintop home. In closing, he said, it's heaven. That's what it is. We're only caretakers of this land. If you don't do something to protect it while you're alive, you don't know what might happen to it in the future. I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Anyone else wishing to speak? And with that, I declare the public hearing closed. Members of the board, do you have any questions or thoughts based on public comment or what you've heard from CWS this evening?
I would just say that it's very obvious that our view shed is extremely important to everybody in the county. And I'm hopeful that knowing that, respecting Rappahannock County and the citizens that have spoken today, that you'll go back and try to find a way to make that a better option location-wise. Even if we don't need it, I think it would be good to be prepared in case we determine after Scrabble that you do.
Anyone else? I just wanted to say, I guess I sort of echo Debbie's comments and the comments of a lot of people that have spoken this evening. I really do support fire and rescue, and I understand you all's needs. However, it's not an either-or situation on these towers. We also have to consider the view shed and the planning and zoning implications. It's a both-and situation. It's not either-or. I know you have made certain offers to mitigate some of the concerns regarding the tower structures. To my mind, when I look in comparison to what we have on other structures, particularly on 211 in Rappahannock County, what we've done to really mitigate the impact on the view sheds, either putting it against wooded hillsides or disguising it in a silo. This site doesn't offer either of those options. We did receive back the engineering studies on Friday evening, late Friday evening. That leaves us a relatively short runway to tonight's meeting. And with that in mind, if there's no further discussion from the other members of the board, I would make a motion that we table this until the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors next Monday.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right, that takes us to the second public hearing of the evening. Ms. Summers, if you would be so kind as to introduce the Scrabble Tower discussion.
Thank you. CWS submitted a functional wireless service facility application on July 31st, 2019. The entirety of the application submitted is provided in the agenda materials posted on board docs. The applicant, CWS, modified their application prior to determination by the planning commission and letter to that effect is on board docs. Before the board tonight is the application. This application is located on tax map 56 4C along the Route 522 property owned by Thomas Johnson and Monica McHenry. CWS proposes a 199-foot tower, lattice tower with a proffered to a monopole tower. They are requesting waivers from microwave dishes to be used, landscaping requirements, permit assignability, and the access road being paved to Subdivision Road. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on September 18th of 2019 and tabled it until their November 20th meeting, in which the Planning Commission decided to recommend approval of this application by a vote of 5-1. This public hearing has been properly noticed and considered tonight vote with an added newspaper and mailing to property owners within 1 mile of the tower. The applicant, I believe, again, has a presentation of this part.
Thank you, Michelle. Mr. Davis.
Thank you, appreciate it. I'm going to be brief. I think you've heard from a lot of people. The Scrabble Tower is something that CWS spent significant time working on, trying to address the issues. It's well screened by trees. It is in a protected area. One of the good things about it, I think, is from the study that you all have done, is the amount of coverage that is there that comes from the Scrabble Tower. What I'd like to do is turn this over to Open Prairie. She can go through the presentation. And then if you have any questions, the folks here from Centel, they can answer.
Thank you.
Try to be more brief on this one. I won't repeat a lot of the things we've already talked about, but we'll try to just talk a little bit about the Scrabble site specifically. This site is located just south of Scrabble Road, off of Jackson Lane. It's set back about just under 900 feet from 522, about 500 feet from the closest point on Jackson Lane. Like the Woodville Tower, we originally applied for a 199-foot lattice structure, but we have since agreed to build a monopole and a painted monopole if that's what the board prefers. It's on a 26-acre parcel. It's heavily wooded, as you can see from this aerial. That little pin there is the location of the tower on the parcel. The tower, again, will not be lit. It'll be in a 50 by 100-foot fenced compound, which is our pretty standard building. We would access the tower from, again, an existing gravel driveway that extends from Jackson Lane. And the facility would be designed for, again, up to 4 wireless service providers. Same objective as the Woodville site. We're trying to, along with the 2 existing towers in Sperryville and Boston, provide uninterrupted, strong, good quality coverage along that corridor. These are the same propagation maps that I included in the Woodville presentation. So the one on the right shows the Chantel's projected propagation with Woodville at 139 and Scrabble at 199. This next one Gary showed you a little while ago is the predicted coverage if Scrabble is on the air and Woodville is not, which I think is probably of interest to, based on the earlier discussion. And I'll just kind of walk through the site in general, and then I think I'd like to have Chantel Engineer come up and talk about that a little bit. These are the photo simulations that we prepared for Scrabble. I mean, we really do believe this is a good site. There are many places where you can't see it at all, and the places that you can see the tower, for the most part, it's just the top of the structure. This is, so again, these you've probably seen them in the application package. These are the same photo simulations. This is from up on Scrabble Road. The next one is, where is this one? Facing south. I guess this is, again, coming down 522. In this case, even in winter, this is a winter shot from the tower. It's amazing sometimes how much screening you get from trees, even when there are no leaves. It's dense woods, they still provide a lot of screening. This is one of the more prominent views. It's from behind the church on Scrabble Road. I think that was taken from the parking lot. The next two are from standing on Jackson Lane in front of the two closest houses. And that circle shows the balloons actually behind those trees in both cases. Again, these were winter shots. Okay, we mentioned before, we are happy to paint the tower, a couple of different options depending on what was preferred. These are the same two examples I showed before. We went through the waivers. I don't think I need to go through those again, although in this case, given the fact that it's a heavily wooded site, landscaping would be particularly difficult and probably wouldn't survive because of the tree canopy. So it does make a lot of sense in this case. Then the new tower, again, microwave dish, we already talked about that. So just cutting to the chase, again, we're all about connectivity on Route 522. In this case, there is a somewhat denser population in the vicinity of the site. So this site, in addition to serving travelers on the road, would serve a good number of folks in the community. We obviously heard plenty about public safety. I don't need to talk about that anymore. We like this location. It's a densely wooded parcel with very limited visibility. And we talked about the level of current carrier interest in trying to get some additional service deployed in the county while the carriers are active here. One of the comments in the public comment for Woodville, talked about, I was concerned or just bringing up the issue of no coverage. Both of these sites are primarily covering the transportation corridors. There is coverage beyond the transportation corridors, but Chantel in one of the planning commission meetings sort of described how they go about building out the county, and step one, phase one, are the major transportation corridors. After they've done that, when resources allow and priorities allow, they come back and try to further build out the counties. I can't remember what county it was that Mr. Henry on the planning commission mentioned that
Shenandoah.
Sorry.
It was Shenandoah.
Shenandoah, pretty much throughout, but it was, the process of getting there was similar to what we're talking about here in Sperryville. I also wanted to comment with regard to the microwave issue. When I said that Chantel, that the carriers don't like microwaves, it's not because of health issues or health concerns, it's because they don't provide the same reliability of connection as fiber does. Fiber is just a superior technology. So I just wanted to clarify that. And I guess the last comment I have is just, again, we are in the business of building infrastructure and leasing it to the carriers. There would be no reason for us to build a structure if we weren't very confident that carriers would be coming along to provide service. That would be a really bad business decision for us. And the same thing with carriers. It cost Chantel a couple of $100,000 to deploy a co-location. That's not even CWS's cost to build it out. There's no upside for them in building structure that's not needed, as someone pointed out, and more than one person pointed out. They don't get additional customers just because they put a tower in there. They get additional customers because they provide good, reliable, quality service. So that's why we rely heavily on carriers to tell us what their needs are and to figure out from there where we choose to try to put infrastructure in a given geography. Would it be all right if Jamie Dennis comes up and talks a little bit about the propagation and how he does that? Would that be helpful?
I think that would be helpful at this time, Hope. And I did want to say, I think sometimes in negotiating or discussing the details of these applications, I don't want it to get lost that I am grateful to CWS for bringing forward applications to try to look at proposals for Rappahannock County. There are a lot of companies bringing that information to the table, and I do appreciate, that we do work together through this process, and I think sometimes that gets lost in the details, and I did just want to tell you that as well.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Hope. And yes, we'd love to hear from the providers.
Yeah, and Hope, one thing that would be helpful to me, because I had the specific question about gap in coverage, if you have Scrabble but no Woodville, now that we have the federal engineering study that we funded that came out on Friday, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but I'd be interested, number one, for you to talk about your own analysis, and then two, to talk about to what extent our independent study corroborates, undermines, or might agree with what you've already determined. That would help us a lot. All right, thanks.
My name is Jamie Dennis, and first and foremost, I agree with your second. It's pretty inaccurate.
Okay.
And Hope sent it to me last night, and I looked over it, and it matched pretty much what I think I've said. The only thing I have not presented, and I never have, as long as I've been doing this, I've never presented or designed a network, Charlottesville, Roanoke, Nelson, Orange, Louis, wherever I'm building the network out. I've never done it in a low band. Low band is good parking forever. T-Mobile, you see the map for 600 megahertz. We're going to go even further than our 800 megahertz. The reason I don't design a network around 800 megahertz is because that's where we spread almost the least amount of spectrum. We have a 5 megahertz channel. So going way back when I first started doing this, I started from the bottom. I was working with customers. So I've dealt with customer shortcomings. I know what the customer's going to complain about, and I know what they're complaining about today, because I'm the end result now. The end result now is I can't bring up Facebook. I can't stream YouTube. So what you're seeing, a picture that's painted, I wouldn't disagree with anyone here. You can put up 3 sites. Do you have signal? I'm going to tell you will. On 800 megahertz, we're going to have signal. But what you won't see is on 800 megahertz, if a customer with a perfect condition of their phone, one customer on this one antenna, they'll get about 25 megs down. That's perfect. You get 2 on it, you go to about 20 megs per user. You get 3 customers on it, you get to about 17 megs down. So as you start to get more and more users, your speeds will diminish. You get down to 4, 3, 2 megs, we're getting bombarded with complaints.
Where does fire and rescue or the ability of some Deputy Dodson on a cell phone, where does he fit into that? Let's set aside. Okay.
That's why I said 800 megahertz, these 3 sites, their phone calls will go through. The data they will, right, if the tower is congested and it's 800 megahertz only, they may have an issue.
Okay.
That's also upload, that's not download. Upload is even slower. So once it starts to diminish to where it comes to a crawl, you stick it coming in at 800 megahertz, I can't say, okay, I'll just add another channel. I'm done. 800 megahertz is done in 5 minutes. It's 1900 megahertz, I have a lot more of it. You slow down, okay, I'll add another 5. You get to a 10 meg channel, you're getting about 60 megs down for a single user. So all of my analysis have always been 1900 megahertz. I would not disagree with their study. It looks pretty darn accurate.
Okay, so given your plan for, it sounds like Chantal would be a constant on all 4 towers. That's the one service provider we know that is for sure committed to all 4, right? So let's say there's a Chantal network on those 4. Given your plans for frequency, what is and take Woodville out, what is the gap and what is the nature of the gap in coverage on 522?
You're talking about Woodville and Scrabble, Boston?
Correct, yeah.
What is the gap?
Yeah, what would the...
On 800 megahertz, probably won't be.
Okay, but...
1900 megahertz, it's not a continuous gap. It's going to be spotty. You're going to be in and out. I think it's probably about a mile. I think it was roughly about a mile.
Based on what you're planning to do, what about 800, right? I mean, what you're...
That's 1900 megahertz.
So it'd be about a mile.
You would build out both 800 and 900.
Oh, yes.
So 800 wouldn't get as swamped if you had 1900 for people that are closer in.
Right, that's correct.
Okay. But at 1900, the gap is about a mile on 522.
About yes. And we also own 2.5. So in the future, we do have 2.5, but that's a higher frequency. It's a much smaller footprint. So you probably need another tower. If we were doing a 2.5 study, which if they did a 2.5 study, you see the same thing, is what I would tell you. 800 megahertz, when I believe they did the study, they only mentioned vehicular coverage at the low frequency. Nothing about the high frequency working with a 3-second design. For vehicular, outdoor, probably.
Very clear. All right.
Thank you, Jamie.
Anyone else? Thanks a lot.
Is that everybody that you brought, or did?
That's probably all the units. I'm not sure. Could I make one other?
Absolutely.
Follow-up, Jamie. I think Jamie gave us a very, very good technical explanation, but just to sort of re-emphasize, I think you all know it was in the report too that all the carriers have different frequencies that they own and different amounts of spectrum. And that's really what Jamie was talking about, is the fact that while 800 would be a great solution, they only have a limited amount of spectrum. And so that's why they have to design these networks to use a combination of frequencies. And that's why the study, while very accurate, it doesn't address capacity issues, and it doesn't really present a realistic design in terms of how, I was looking back through some of our recent applications with carriers, because they have to report on their application with us to lease space. They have to detail out what frequencies they're going to use, and they all use a variety. It's a combination, and it's technologies impacted, it's equipment impacted, it's how much of that specific spectrum they own in that particular geography, and that can vary too. So it's really
Excuse me, heights of towers can also affect that?
Say again?
Heights of the towers can also affect that.
Well, they affect the how far the signal goes, yeah, for sure. Any other questions?
Do you all have any other questions?
I have a couple, but I don't know if it's a proper time to ask for either this one or the other tower, but you were familiar with using pine trees. We've heard it mentioned here. What's the tallest one that could be offered? Do you have that knowledge?
Well, I mean, there's no real limit. I mean, you could build a 200-foot pine tree if you wanted to, but
That would stick
look
out.
very realistic.
I understand that, but I just wondered if there's a height limitation.
I mean, not from a physical structure, it's really just an aesthetic limitation. The other issue with regard to pine trees is that they're, or monopines, is that they're very expensive. And we don't like to build them. We have built them, but it's not our preferred choice. It was Woodville site, Scrabble hearing that it wouldn't really be appropriate there. Just because there isn't, as someone mentioned. I was not saying that that was a heavily wooded site. I think I specifically said that it was not. But there is enough vegetation and tree line between the road and the site to help screen the base of the tower, not the whole tower. But that site would not be, I think a tree would be more obtrusive from a visual standpoint there than a monopole or a lattice structure. And in Scrabble, where we do need full height, we need it's actually 195 to the top of the steel with a 4-foot lightning rod. That would be way too tall for a tree pole. It would look silly, to the extent, in places that you can see it.
I hope when we met recently, I asked you about what you called your Warrenton West site, which is on the north side of 211. You see it. As I've taken my children to school this week, I've been focused on it. Or last week. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. You have to slow down about 30 miles an hour to actually see it. It's in someone's front yard.
Yeah.
Do you know off the top of your head the height of that tree?
I think it's 120.
Okay.
I think.
It's
I can't promise that.
yeah, it's pretty remarkably disguised. And I recognize that it's in a yard that's heavily wooded, it's elevated, so maybe you get some height benefit from
Well, there is
the
this
topography.
perspective issue with towers where, the closer you are, if there are intervening trees, the less you see. It's sort of counterintuitive, but you kind of end up looking up
Right.
through the trees. And just the way that the road happens to undulate through there, you
Yeah.
just don't see it, even though it's way above the road. So it's just an interesting site. And it is literally, what would you say, 20 feet from a beautiful house, a residential.
Well, it's further from the house, but next to the garage.
Next to the
It's pretty good.
That's among
As I expressed to you, I just want to say this for the record, as Ms. Smith already articulated, I appreciate CWS, I appreciate that you're in business, and I appreciate that we're a local governing body that's doing our best to take care of everyone's interests, and that involves compromise. As I've thought about this a lot, my I don't want to call it frustration because that's not the right word, but my concern is that because you've been in the county before, including the Sperryville site, as Phil Irwin and others have articulated, what a unique locality this is. We didn't have people here from Washington, D.C. who are getting married who are probably here because they recognize it's a special place. And I would hope that in future applications, and we can't get into your business decisions, as you well pointed out to me, within the limitations of state code. It's not my intent to do so, but only to send the message that given this unique community we live in, I would hope that CWS's starting point on future applications will take into full account the fact that many people in this community, while wanting cellular coverage in some form, also do want to respect the value and the importance of our landscape in these view sheds. And I feel like a starting point that is a lattice tower that is proffered to a monopole leaves us with a big gap in between those who want to preserve view sheds and where you're coming from. And I just wanted to state that so that if we're sitting here again in the future, maybe we start closer to one another than so far apart as we are in this case.
We clearly want to take the path of least resistance, and we do.
I understand.
And so I appreciate what you're saying and understand what you're saying.
Any of the other supervisors? Mr. Frazier? You all right?
All right, Madam.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. McCrary. And with that, I declare the public hearing on the Scrabble Tower open. Mr. Irwin.
Phil Irwin, Fun Hill. Rather than to restate what I have already commented upon earlier, let me introduce a bit of history. I don't know how many years ago it was, over 20 perhaps. An application was made by Centel or Centers, I think one of those three predecessors, for a series of towers connecting Amosville and Washington. And the result, after the Rappahannock League for Environmental Protection suggested that alternatives to towers hidden somehow, obscured, made invisible between Amosville and Washington would be an alternative. Right now, I don't know how many towers there are in that circuit, but it is providing signals along Route 211, along that stretch. Those towers, I don't know how many there are because I can't count them. You can't see them. They're wonderful, they're obscured, they're hidden. And I would think that that being a precedent, you could follow and expect it to be applied for as an alternative, which I have not heard any alternatives from the applicants. And until I do, I'm unsatisfied with the fact that we should be doing this. And I do encourage you to request how these towers could be obscured so that they did not deface this beautiful county.
Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, Mr. Summers.
Summers Piedmont, I'm also the chief of Sprayville Rescue and member of the county's Supervisors Broadband Committee. So this is of keen interest to us. I wasn't here for the earlier discussion because I was on call. Just wanted to say for the record that we strongly support both towers. That access for us is really important. So I could go into a litany of cases where we've needed cell coverage, where people have been injured and been able to reach out. We've heard before. Hope you stand your ground on this one.
Thank you.
Hey, Todd, you told us at the last, I think it was the last broadband committee meeting about a specific incident where you had to pull into the apron of the Sprayville Rescue.
Correct.
Could you just, for everyone's benefit, just retell that story?
We were called to women having chest pains, hooked her up to our EKG machine. They told us she was having a major heart attack. We were in transport, but normally what we like to do is to transmit a picture of the EKG strip to the hospital that's going to receive her so they know what exactly is going on. No cell coverage, so we had to stop at the station with the patient in the back, get a connection to our phone, use our Wi-Fi signal to send the picture to Winchester Hospital. That's 4 or 5 minutes of delay with the patient in the back who's having a heart attack. So it's one of many examples of cases. My first case as an EMT was, the call was at 4 in the morning for a 2-car accident and a pedestrian hit by a vehicle. The person had been on FT Valley Road, the car had broken down, no cell coverage, no nothing. Another car came along, hit him in the back, which hit him and put him into the windshield. That's a perfect example of where cell phone coverage would have allowed him to call and ask for help. He'd been out there for hours waiting for someone to stop and help him. We had a woman in Woodville right across from the old 4th of July site whose husband had a heart attack working on a tree stand. And she tried to call for help. I ended up having to walk out to the site, climb over the gate, flag down a car on Sperryville Pike, get a ride into Sperryville, call 911. So by the time we got there, her husband of 36 years was face down in the creek dead. Cell phone coverage, including the Woodville Tower, would have mitigated that. Well, Larry Grove and I had to sit with her and explain to her why on her phone it said failed call, failed call, failed call, failed call, try to dial 911. So, love the view shed. You come next time and explain to that woman why we have a tower there.
Thank you, Todd. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, Ms. Price.
Okay, we are right across from the proposed Scrabble Tower. The Scrabble Tower is within feet of certain homes, and some of them are low-income, I'm sorry to say, and within a fourth of a mile of 26 homes. That's too close to homes. In our comprehensive plan, we say do minimal damage, protect our farmlands, protect our residences, protect our beautiful land. That is not minimal damage, that is maximum. That is the danger zone. And to say that it's not a viewshed issue, it is. It would be a viewshed issue for our farm, which my parents purchased for the viewshed. Coming down 522, it's all seated. When you hit Scrabble Corner, you would see it. There it would be really close to the highway. You would see it on down the road. It may not be as pronounced as the Eldon Farms, but it is a viewshed issue. If you're going to reject one, you need to reject the other. You shouldn't throw one group of people under the bus who are living close to this proposed tower. We get a Sprint signal on our farm. We have gotten it for 15 years. Chris Harris called me from it in our yard, and I got the call in my house. I don't want to bring John in, but John is my next door neighbor, and he has a cell phone that works in his cabinet. He puts out the Rappahannock News. There is no tower around. So there is a signal as close as across the street from this proposed tower. It may not be everywhere, but that we're in a hilly mountainous county. Hope said she addressed all the concerns of people who talked to her. She did not. I have talked to her on the phone. I have emailed her. I talked to her in the Sperryville hearings. She did not. Let's get that straight. In fact, she told me there would be no tower put near my home. So, many moving off of landlines to cell phones. If they are, it's because of the propaganda we receive all the time about how harmless cell phones are and how necessary they are. I do support fire and rescue. I support our law enforcement. But to say we need public safety at the expense of poisoning the public and poisoning the county, and even the media is coming to wake up to this. With the 5G, where they want to put antennas on every electric line and radiate us close range, they're coming to realize that this radiation is very, very harmful. The radiation has been linked to glioblastoma, brain cancer. That came in with cell phone service. It's linked to thyroid cancer. It's linked to autoimmune diseases like Parkinson's, or at least making them worse. It's linked to early dementia, inability to concentrate, ADD, inability to do anything but in jumps, you know. If you test our school children against school children when they didn't have this technology, the previous generation was sharper, brighter, faster. As far as fire and rescue, the park uses police radios. They don't allow cell towers in right now. There's pressure on the national parks to let them in, but so far this park has not. I think we could do with police radios and one or two good towers that covered the whole park with police radios, and sign out police radios to bus drivers, to anybody who thinks they may have an accident and they're responsible and they need something that will, because the thing with police radios, from what I've read, is that they carry further, they're more robust. In a mountainous and hilly area, they do better. They do better, like in the park, they would do better here. Cellular service, and I've given you guys this link, is unreliable. It goes down easily, it goes down in bad weather. You can go around a curve and lose it. You know, you can go down a road and lose it. It's too unreliable for dependence of law enforcement and fire and rescue on it. I think I've given you a link about all fiber communities that have no wireless in them. A lot of them are in the wilderness of Canada. They do need emergency services. There's a phone number and an address in there in one of the links that you can contact them. Why don't we talk to them about how they handle their emergency services? In Los Angeles, and I've given you these links, the firefighters were having such a problem with their fires, they were getting headaches, they were losing their memory, they couldn't concentrate, and they insisted that the cell phone towers be removed from fire stations in the Los Angeles area. And they said they could not go out and fight their fires, you know, that it was affecting them neurologically. Just do a search. Los Angeles firefighters get rid of cell phone towers, just do a search. So a lot of it is not being opposed to fire and rescue, but giving them the best. You know, they need to be healthy, just like the public needs to be healthy. We don't need this radiation. We have a mission statement in the comprehensive plan that was in there before these applications for fiber to every home, premise, every home, every business, and every school. There's a reason for that. Why do they want fiber backups? Why does she say, well, we can't go out miles on Eldon Farms because we can't get fiber out there, so we're going to take the fiber that REC brings, Rappahannock Electric, down 522. That's the fiber we should use. They want fiber because they never have to upgrade it. It's that superior. It is fast, it is safe, it is reliable, it is that superior that they want it for the wireless broadcast. Why not take that superior stuff and give it to us in our homes? Give it to our businesses, give it to fire and rescue. Give us fiber phones, fiber TV, fiber internet. Broadband committee decided broadband should be brought in not by wireless towers, but by fiber network. It's far superior in the schools, it's far superior in the library. The only fault I have is that they hooked it up to wireless routers. I can feel the wireless in this auditorium, I'm sensitive to it. Scott, give me pressure on the head. You can hardwire fiber and it's superior to anything. Why don't we get it rather than give it to this technology that is going to poison us? Basically, it's inferior technology. I would say let the Boston Tower and the Sperryville Tower be up and fully running and then test the signal. Test the signal down 522. I was at both hearings. They put out a propagation map with a big blue circle of 5 miles around both towers. They met in Woodville. That would give an emergency signal all the way down the road without either tower. So I say it's foolish to authorize either tower when neither of these are up and running yet. And also, radiation goes in one direction. It only gets stronger. It doesn't get weaker. As it gets stronger and stronger, you can be sure of the signal. The signal we have is coming from somewhere. It's coming from Amosville or somewhere, and we're getting it. I don't know where John's is coming from, maybe Piedmont Road.
Cynthia, you know I hate to interrupt anyone, but I would ask you to wrap it up.
Okay. Well, what I want to say is I think the Sperryville Tower should be, the Scrabble Tower should be denied for the same reasons as the Woodville, and most especially it's too close to homes. And we already have a mission statement for fiber, and we can't have both. In a small county, we cannot afford to invest in fiber to the home and these damn towers put them through. So I say deny the towers. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Katrina, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Melanie Kaczynski. I'm from the Stonewall Hawthorne District, and tonight I've been asked to speak for Mr. John Jackson, who lives on Jackson Lane. He literally, the cell tower for Scrabble is in his backyard. The picture showed was the corner of his house as you look off of Jackson Lane. So some of the things, the questions that he proposes is who will maintain the road? Right now, the residents there on Jackson Lane, it is a private road. They do have to maintain it themselves at their own expense. How often will the road be used? Whose property will you cross to put up the tower? Will you be moving trees to put up the tower? When we have storms, will it cause problems? How will you fix the road when the work is complete? Will there be a road to the tower? Where will, that will be off of Jackson Lane, which is a private road? And will this tower help our fire department, our police department? I think Mr. Jackson would say that he's not opposed to the towers. If we need this in the community, he supports it. I'm not sure if the proposal that's been made covers the residents there and the portion of that road that's going to be used. I don't think I saw it, whether that's covered.
Could I ask you to repeat, I missed writing down one of your questions. Before, after road repairs, but before, if it would help fire and rescue, I missed that question, please.
Perhaps you could put them in writing to the board so it's very clear.
They can.
That would be great.
Okay.
Not to preempt you from responding now.
Right.
Yeah, at the risk of sounding like another board member, could you repeat that last question? Between road repairs and if the tower would help fire and rescue, please.
Yes, if it will help our fire department and police
But
department.
what's before that?
Storm.
Which storms?
Oh, it's a storm, sorry.
Repairs
When we
and
have
storms.
storms, will it cause problems?
Very
I
good.
mean, like a lightning rod type thing?
Wind, trees down.
Wind, trees down, apparatus is falling off the tower maybe.
Very good.
Interrupt the service.
Thank you. What we'll do is circle back and work on some of these, either tonight or in the very near future.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, Bob.
Bob Randy and Jackson. I live closer to the Scrabble, actually, than Woodville. So, but I won't see it until I come down my hill and I'll be 500 feet above it. But again, to my previous remarks, I think it's something that is needed, obviously, and probably the Scrabble, I would again say, let's light up Scrabble, let's light up Scaryville, let's light up Boston, and see where we are. I mean, we've got two out of three that are ready to be switched on, right? Are we waiting to have those switched on so we can see what the services. Perspective also, I think, is helpful. I had, this is a bit over 10 years old. We forget. The iPhone is now maybe 15 years old. And Elon Musk is putting up, somebody mentioned hundreds of satellites. There's an article in this month's, I think, Sky and Telescope. Yeah, because I bought stars. It's worried, are we going to have so many communication satellites in low Earth orbit that we can't see the stars anymore? All we see is blinking lights in and out. So everything is a compromise, I guess, as we go forward. And I fully support the Scrabble Tower. I think it will serve Woodville better than the Woodville Tower. And I do, again, agree with CSW communicating well, probably better starting points would have been helpful. And to go back to my simulation, one of the things that I included in there was the simulation from Red Oak Mountain, which I think was not done, and the simulations were summertime, so if the tower is in my front yard in wintertime, boy, I'm gonna notice a little bit more. So again, I support that. And the fiber is something that we, as a county, with our cooperative, the Rappahannock Electric is our company. I mean, it's socialist, but even Ron would support, I think, it being our cooperative, which it is. We should get on to get the fiber that we need, that their whole service needs. Other cooperatives are working with not local dollars, they're working with the FCC provided dollars to expand into fiber. So that could be the future too, and needed. And again, going parallel with what we need in the immediate time as far as meeting the parents, the emergency community, their needs are foremost. But 10, 15, 25 years when this can be expanded, I think we have to think about that too and get on our cooperative to do a lot more. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Anyone else wishing to speak? And with that, I will declare the public hearing to be closed. Members of the board, did you have any points of discussion or questions based on what we heard during the public hearing?
I have a question, and I wanted to talk to my colleague, Mr. Frazier, actually, if that's appropriate. You haven't testified publicly, but you're sitting next to me. You were, I think, well, clearly you're the only board member who was here during the rollout of the Sprint towers.
Yes.
And I just wonder if you could walk us through how we reached a point in the deployment of the, or how Sprint reached a point in the deployment of those sites that resulted in a combination of silos and trees, and how that all came to pass.
I didn't mean to. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm so sorry. I was thinking this would be a good time for a recess. Would anybody else, I think that before we get into this, I did mean to take that break. Would you mind if we did that now, Mr. Frazier? Just take a brief 5 or 10 minute recess.
Does that mean I can leave?
Does he think you got your answer?
But I really put him on the spot.
It's not.
Let's take a quick 5-10 minute recess and then reconvene. Thank you. No, I didn't do that.
No, let's just wait for Harold to come back and let us know.
All right, if everybody's ready, I'd like to bring the meeting back to order, please. We left off with a question and a discussion about what has historically been the process of accounting for tower reviews and approval. Mr. Frazier.
Yeah, just to clarify, my question is really just for context, because we've seen all the silos and the trees and everything else, and I recognize it's a different time and place, but I think for the benefit of me at least, probably Ms. Donna, as newcomers, it'd be good to get that history, and you're the one who knows it. So.
Well, it really was an application. When Sprint first applied in Rappahannock County, it was, I believe, 5 lattice type on hilltops, and they would have been seen. I don't know if they proposed any lights on them, but at 199 on a hilltop, it would have been, much more coverage than what we wound up with, but it would have been seen. So there was a big uproar in the community about 5 lattice towers on hills. They withdrew the application. They came back with 7, and 2 of those are monopoles, the Amosville and Benvenue, which were shorter than they are now. They've since had special permits to extend those. But you had the pine tree that's what do you call it, a monopine along 522. Most people don't know it's there. It's near Miss Gressinger's house. And then we have 3 silos. And there's one there on Jordan's Hill that most people don't know about, but it's in the trees, and most people can't see it on 211. So that was their application, and the board pretty much approved what they applied for. But it was 3 silos, 1 in Huntley, 2 in the Washington area, the monopine along 522, and 3 monopoles, 1 of which most everybody doesn't know about, along 211. So that was the application, and the public was generally okay with it, and I think it's worked out pretty well.
Thanks for that background.
Any other discussion? Hope, based on what you heard in the public hearing, did you have any follow-up comments, or did you want to work through the questions that were presented from Mr. Jackson?
If you'd like me to.
That would be wonderful. Thank you.
I just spoke with him individually, but I'll go over them again.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I remember all the questions either. I know he had some concerns about road maintenance. It's a private road, it's a gravel road, Jackson is gravel road. And I let him know that, it's our standard practice to, there will be some large trucks, crane, et cetera, during construction. And to the extent that there's any damage from those trucks going in and out Jackson Lane during the construction of the site, we always put it back to where it was. I told Mr. Jackson that he could go look at the Boston site, because it's an exact same situation where there's a gravel road, private gravel road that leads up to the site, and we did work pretty closely with the neighbors during construction to make sure that everything was taking care of any damage that took place. Once the site is in the air, there's very minimal traffic to it. The carriers individually, to the extent that you have 1 or more carriers there, they'll typically go once a month, once every 2 months in a small camel truck or a pickup truck, and do some maintenance at the site, some tweaking of their radio equipment. But that shouldn't cause any issues with the road. What else? What are the other
The clearing area that will be affected in order to construct the tower. I think that was one of the questions.
Yeah, it'll basically be, if you, I can give you a copy of the drawing, it'll basically specify on our drawings of our application, it'll be whatever trees. We do have to extend the gravel road, so there'll be trees that come down that 20-foot or 12-foot wide stretch of road, and then the area, 50 by 100-foot fenced compound. We always make, a good effort to keep as many trees up as possible, and there is a pretty good setback between the property line and the fence. So there will be that tree buffer for Mr. Jackson.
And then in terms of the storm situation, I think the height requirements and the clearance around it.
Yeah, if the concern was, would it fall down, that we build these things, you can't believe how deep and strong the foundation is, and they are designed with what's called breakpoint technology, so that if anything ever were to happen, which is extremely rare, the tower is designed, a monopole is designed to kind of break off in sections, and it has to have a fall radius within the fenced compound. And then, of course, there's the setback requirement too, which provides an added measure of safety.
Then I was wondering, while we have you at the microphone, if I know Mr. Goshorn brought it up, and I believe some other folks did too. I know we discussed it extensively at the Planning Commission level, as I was the board's representative to that body this last year, about the timelines for the delivery of service to the existing sites. I know that's an ongoing concern, and I understand Boston is eminent.
Yeah, and believe me, we get as frustrated as you do in terms of the delays sometimes, and a variety of reasons. I know
Boston, for example, T-Mobile is the carrier that's working right now on getting on the air in Boston, the Boston site. And a big chunk of their original delay was equipment. They couldn't, like, the equipment that they needed, and so forth, you know, was on back order, for lack of a better description, and it took a long time just for them to get the equipment. All of T-Mobile's equipment at Boston is on the tower and ready to go. The only thing that they haven't finished is the microwave backhaul connection. It's really far for them for T-Mobile from that site to the next site that they're going to use to try to get the telco there until fiber is available, and so they're still working on that. We've been told they'd be on the air by the end of the year. They're not on the air yet, but I know we ask for and get reports from T-Mobile's construction folks, usually weekly. You know, Chantel, well, T-Mobile also has a lease at Sperryville. I know they have their building permit, but right now they haven't started building out the site, and I don't know exactly why. I mean, typically, I know the carriers, like everybody else, they have lots of sites, they have lots of fires that they're fighting, and the priorities are constantly shifting. And I think I mentioned this to you maybe one time, and maybe in the planning commission meeting, there's a real shortage of tower industry workers right now, people that can climb towers and do work. And that's creating a lot of backlogs. It's actually, you can look online, there's, the FCC is working on this constantly. There's all kinds of federal initiatives to train a workforce, because with 5G deployment and how important, what a priority 5G is being made, by the country, there just aren't enough people. And so, sometimes I think I was asking T-Mobile about Sperryville, and they said, well, we need to finish Boston first, and then we'll move that crew, over to Sperryville. And Chantel, we were told recently that all 4 of these sites are now, they just updated their budgets, are now in their 2020 build plans, so we can get these things underway. Hopefully Chantel will build out this year. And then Verizon was a surprise, just in terms of timing. A couple months ago, I think they approached us, wanted to know what height was available on the tower. We told them, get in line. There's 2 other carriers, Sperryville, sorry. And they have proceeded and now have actually filed an application with us. They've done all their engineering drawings. And they told us their goal is to be on air this spring. So we'll see. But we were very happy about that.
And Mr. Curry has a quick question as well.
Regarding the site plan, it shows the lease area, it appears to be the same as your fence line for the compound.
But go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so if that is the case, how would you meet the screening requirement if you don't get a waiver? And if you do get a waiver because there are trees around the tower, how would you protect the trees that are around the tower if it's outside your lease area?
So the way our ground lease is written, it basically says, we have a 50 by 100 foot lease area along with any required landscaping buffer. So we have that agreement with the ground owner that if we're, required to keep all the trees within, 10 feet or 15 feet or whatever the requirement is, that's part of our lease. I think our lease was submitted with our application.
I don't believe it.
No?
So
You should sleep tonight.
if the board is of a mind to approve a waiver on the landscaping, there is a possibility that the trees all around the tower would be logged. And how would you protect against something like that happening?
We would have to have it, like it's a tree safe area, with the ground owner.
Okay. Perhaps that's something you'll discuss before now and when the board makes a decision.
Okay. I don't anticipate a problem because I think the ground owner is intending to build a house on that same property, and I think wants to keep as much of the tree cover in place as possible. So our interests are mutually aligned.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Murray.
I did want to mention, if I could, just one really quick thing about in follow-up to your discussion about the Sprint deployment. Those are, I think, less than 100 feet tall, the silos. I don't know a lot about the monopine structure that's there, but I know the 3 silos are all less than 100 feet. And one of the problems with that in today's environment is that the configuration of antennas that the carriers prefer and that we'll need for 5G and all the current technology don't fit very well inside a silo. And it also makes co-locations very difficult. I'm not sure if there are any additional carriers in those Sprint silos or whether a second or third carrier could make those 100-foot silos work. I also looked today, just out of curiosity, and those structures, all of those Sprint structures that have been around for a while are about 2 to 2.5 miles apart from each other. And the configuration that we've proposed on 522, it's just under 10 miles total, and I think the Scrabble to Boston Scrabble is just under 3 miles, and then it goes a little over 3. So our spacing is actually broader than what's on in terms of the number of structures, and so again, just keeping in mind the advantage to the county with height on co-location and being able to have one structure that can service every carrier that wants to be there, as opposed to something a lot shorter, and then the second carrier is going to have to come back and ask you to build something else.
For the board's benefit, one of the silos has 2 carriers. I suspect that's probably maxed out.
I think there's 2 in one.
2 in Washington.
Right. Other than that, I think it's just one piece.
Oh, just out of curiosity, when fiber does come in, does the microwave dish actually get taken down, or does it get left up? It gets taken down.
And I just had a question. When we talked last week, we talked briefly about the fact that you had interest from Verizon on Sperryville. You've got T-Mobile in Boston, and then
And Sperryville.
And Sperryville. Okay.
Leases, yeah.
So with T-Mobile, just from my own understanding of this concept of a 4 cell tower continuous coverage network, and maybe I'm missing the point, but have either T-Mobile or Verizon expressed any interest in the Woodville and Scrabble sites to complete such a network?
T-Mobile has,
Okay.
not in the form of an application or a lease, but we provided them information and they've confirmed for us that could work for their network. Verizon hasn't gone any further than Sperryville in terms of conversation with us.
And based on your experience in your industry, is what feels like to me is kind of a scattershot receipt of inquiries from these different providers? Is this typical, and also is the timeline and what seems like a long delay in getting Sperryville and Boston up? I mean, is this also typical based on your experience?
I think it's been, uncertainty is typical.
Okay.
Boston has been a lot longer than we are used to for a variety of reasons. Like I said, there was, I think, a 6-month equipment delay. There is this workforce shortage, this microwave issue, and there are efforts to try to get that to work. That is not typical.
Okay.
And they're paying us rent. So,
Yeah.
just again, to talk about the sort of business side of this whole equation, they clearly they want to be on the air, and I'm sure they're being pressured to get on the air.
Yeah, good point.
So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Oh, Mr. Curry has one more question, please. Don't be
And
so sorry.
it's probably one you can't answer, but
Thanks.
obviously, air towers are something that citizens have a hard time looking at. We've heard about that. And we know what's been happening over years and months relative to T-Mobile and Sprint. And could that delay installation of any of these towers? And that's by either carrier, but one of the carriers.
Well, I'll let Jesse comment also, but the great news for my industry, this industry, infrastructure industry, is that we are almost at the end of that discussion.
The trial is over, the parties involved in the lawsuit have gave their closing arguments, I think, 2 weeks ago. And, the consensus seems to be that a decision will be made on the merger by the end of February. And the other, and again, I don't know this for a fact, I don't think anybody knows this for a fact, but the other thing that I'm hearing very consistently is once that decision's made, whatever the outcome, it's going to be full steam ahead for those companies to get going again, because they have had their hands a little tied while the mergers discussions are going on. So, Jesse, do you have anything to add? No?
Waiting game.
Right.
Thank you.
I ask Jesse all the time, what's happening?
All right, any further discussion? Any motions relative to this application that we'd like to entertain this evening?
Table the first one.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we table this. Was a motion on the Woodville application to table until February 3rd.
Correct.
So I'll make the same motion with respect to the Scrabble application, to table until the February 3rd regular Board of Supervisors meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And that brings us to the end of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Apple pop.